Welcome, NEC basketball fans. We are back with the season debut of our NEC on the Run Hoops podcast. I'm Ron Ratner, Senior Associate Commissioner at the Northeast Conference. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Sean Hone from Sacred Heart University, a first-team All-NEC performer as a senior last year, over 1,300 career points. We are going to break it all down, the first month of non-conference play, what to expect from all the NEC teams moving forward. But first, Sean, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. It's my first time doing something like this, so I'm excited to get to it.
All right, so before we get to talking about all the NEC teams, let's talk a little bit about you. Yeah. So how does it feel now? You've been in it for 4 years. Yeah. Now you're kind of on the outside looking in. How much do you miss that day-to-day? Do you miss the grind, or do you miss the games? Like, what's your feelings?
Yeah, I miss everything about it. I'm waking up every day just playing basketball, playing Division I basketball. It's a dream come true for every kid. I miss the grind. I miss going to film. I miss going to lifts. I miss having to eat well. I miss obviously the games. So yeah, everything comes into effect. You take for granted at the time how much you really love the place and how much it really has changed your life. And then me graduating, looking back on it now, I can really say I was very lucky to go to a school like Sacred Heart, play for a great coaching staff, play with some great players, and I'm truly blessed I was able to do it. And everyone that's in this situation right now is living the dream.
So what was it that Coach Latina and Sacred Heart University did for you to kind of get you to the point in your life today?
They did so much. Coach Latina really changed my life. He really believed in me when I was at prep school at St. Thomas More. Not many teams were interested, not many teams were offering, and he took a chance on me. I was able to work with him, was able to work with many of the coaching staff members, and really changed my game. They put a lot of faith into me and someone that wasn't even supposed to play to being a starter my freshman year and starting my next 4 years. And I think Coach Tina took a big chance on me and kind of giving me the keys to the car and really put faith in me and to lead the team. And like I said, it just changed my life.
So what is now the future hold in store for Sean? What's next?
I'm right now I'm still waiting to play professionally. It's taken a little bit longer than anticipated, but we're still waiting. Something can hit any day. I'm waiting by the phone. Me and my agent are working tirelessly to find the right spot and find the right fit to advance my career. In the meantime, I'm an assistant volunteer coach at a Division III school called Drew University right near my house. Doing something like that made me realize that when my playing time is over, that I do want to coach, and I'm really enjoying that. So in the meantime, I'm just staying ready. I'm working out every day, waiting for the phone call. When that comes, I'll go hopefully play professional, see how long that can last. And when I come back, I don't see myself leaving basketball anytime soon, and I'll probably get right into coaching.
And your major was?
Finance, major into sports management minor.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to possibly go back and get my master's somewhere, but we'll see what goes from there.
All right, we're also looking, this is the launch of Sean's announcing career. We'll see how this goes today. Hopefully, maybe we can incorporate you to some NEC broadcasts.
Yeah, no,
this
definitely.
season.
I was thinking about that the other day, and I would love to do that at some point.
All right, we learned about Sean Hone and what his future plans are. Now let's turn our attention to this NEC season. First up, Sean, let's talk about the newest NEC member, Merrimack. Yeah. And it's been quite the start. Something probably a lot of people did not expect.
Yeah, no question. I mean, coming from a Division II to Division I, everyone thinks that the jump is going to be very hard, but I think they're transitioning very well. They are for real. They play a funky 2-3 zone, but everyone is consistently pointing, talking, and I think that's really starting to pay dividends against the teams they play. They started off a little slow against Maine. They had an unfortunate loss there, but then they bounced back really quickly. Had a huge win over Northwestern, which was great for the team, great for the conference. They had a road win against Hartford, UMass Lowell, and I think for sure that they are someone that can really make some noise in the NEC.
Road wins are hard to come by.
Yeah.
I don't care what level you're playing at. They already have 3 road wins.
Yeah.
As you said, they're doing it with defense. They're forcing turnovers at a rate that's among the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about who spearheads that, Javaris Hayes, and what he's done in his career up to this point. Now he's sort of unleashed on Division I, but he's been doing it for 3 years already.
Yeah. He is a dynamic player. He affects the game in so many ways. He's so gifted. He does not need to really score or shoot the ball to affect the game. He plays at his own pace. He plays smooth. He never gets sped up. And I think someone that's working well with him is their assistant coach, Phil Gaetano. I was able to work with Phil myself when I was a freshman, and he taught me so many ways and how to read the game and how to study the game. I think Javaris is learning from him, picking his brain, and I think that's starting to pay dividends for the team. I think he's starting to incorporate his teammates, and I think he's starting to share the ball and lead the team into, like we talked about, some huge road wins.
One of the things that may set Merrimack apart from some of the other teams is their team chemistry. When you look at the players, there's 3 starters from St. Anthony High School and even more that played together on youth teams growing up. How important is it having that connection with your teammates?
Yeah, it is huge. They're all play at St. Anthony's at a great school that unfortunately closed down from the great state of New Jersey. And they're like, the chemistry is so important. Over time, everything just builds. You know exactly where everyone's going to be. You know when they want the ball, where they want the ball. You know when they're going to cut, when they're going to go for a steal. All those little things that you don't really think about, that builds over time. Most teams are very successful when they have guys like that. They have older leadership that they play together. They build chemistry. They build the trust within one another. And I think that's something that they have, and that they're transitioning very well from the Division II level to the Division I. And I think when they get to conference play, they can make some noise, and they're playing well right now. And I think everything's going to translate well.
Yeah, I think when you take a team that's upper class dominated, that has had success at the Division II level. This was a team that was an NCAA, NCAA tournament team, looking to win, move on in the NCAA tournament. You bring them in and you have a defense like that many people aren't used to seeing at this level. You're going to be in games.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have winners, as Joe Gallo pointed out after the Northwestern game. We've been a winning team through all these years now. Now it's just time to do it at another level, and I think he brought in some players who immediately can impact the game.
They know how to win. Like, that's so important. You can get some good players, but when you know how to win, it can do so many different things. They like we talked about. They play that funky 2-3 zone. They are always talking. That shows leadership. That shows that they know what they want to accomplish. They're always sprinting after. They're running shooters off the line. They don't send many guys to the glass, so they're very good in transition. They do so many little things that you don't really think about that really affect the game and have them win many games.
We'll see what happens next with Merrimack when league play starts in early January, but early indications say they could be a tough team to handle. All right, next up, Sean, we're going to talk about a team that you're pretty familiar with. We're going to talk about those Pioneers up at Sacred Heart. What I really want to talk about, and we know that Sacred Heart's a contender. They're picked second in the preseason poll. But I want to talk about some of the players on this team. Let's talk about Cam Parker. Now, you played with him in the backcourt last year. One of those point guards that just seems to be operating at a different level with his court vision. Set the NCAA assist single game record the other day. What is it about him that sets him apart from others that makes him a special player?
Yeah, Cam is ridiculous. That's just like a good word to throw out there for him. He does a lot of things that coaches are not fond of. He passes the ball, he jumps to pass the ball, he throws a lot of hook passes, he throws a lot of no-look passes. But that's what separates him from other point guards and other guards in our league or even in the NCAA. He sees the floor at such a high rate and so much better than other players that you're like, how did he even know that guy was open? And that personally helps me out. It's helping the other Sacred Heart members out, like Kareem Ozier, Raekwon Clark, Kenan LaRose. And I think that the team goes as he goes. If he's having a good game, Sacred Heart can compete with many, many teams in all of college basketball. I compared him to Phil Gaetano. We were talking about him earlier from Merrimack. I said that Phil Gaetano is the type of guy that can see a defense and be like, screen down there, screen here, and you'll be open there. Where Cam is just I know exactly where it's going to be open no matter what, and I'm going to hit it there. He's just a gifted passer in that way. And I think, like I said earlier, the team goes as he goes. And I think that if he can continue to play at this rate, Sacred Heart's going to be a very, very tough team to beat.
What have you seen? I know you've been watching film and you watched the Sacred Heart games. What have you seen from Cam Parker and Kareem Ozier this year that's different than their freshman season when they were kind of thrown into the fire? Now they're sophomores, they're growing up. What have you noticed about their games?
They're starting to adjust. They're starting to play. They're not getting sped up as much. They're not feeding into quirky defenses. They're not getting rushed. Cam had 24 assists and 5 turnovers. So that's an unbelievable assist turnover ratio. They're starting to understand what's going to be open. It's their second year playing together. We talked about team chemistry earlier. They're starting to build that chemistry within the team. Cam's going to know where Kareem is. Kareem's going to know when Cam wants to pass the ball. So simple things like that. Kareem can squirt the ball like crazy. If he gets hot, he can stay hot, and he can get hot real quick. He's a guy that you don't want to get him hot because he can go off for a 30 in a heartbeat. And then someone like Cam notices that stuff. When you start playing with someone like that, you notice that someone's getting hot, so he'll start to find you more often than not.
One of the things that differentiates Sacred Heart from some of the other NEC teams are their bigs.
Yeah.
With Jarrell Spellman and EJ Anasicki.
Yeah.
How does Coach Latina game plan to get those guys involved to make sure they're a big part of what Sacred Heart's doing?
Yeah, for sure. They're two of my best friends, so I'm going to talk very highly of them, of course. They separate themselves from the pack every game, it seems like. EJ is like a walking 15 points, 15 rebounds every single time he steps on the floor. You don't even recognize it, but at the end of the game, you look up and he has some ridiculous stat line. Jarrell makes it very hard for guards to drive and finish over him. He's leading the NEC in blocks. It helps the defense out because they can get out on shooters more because they know they have such a protector at the basket. They also have a guy come off the bench, Zach Pfaffenberger, that brings very good energy every time he's on the court. The problem with Sacred Heart is they foul a little bit too often. I think the bigs get themselves in a little bit of foul trouble, especially Jarrell and Zach Pfaffenberger. I think Coach Tina, I remember when I was there, always preached to Jarrell to kind of not swat down, but kind of swat the ball and not shrink his body. So I think if Jarrell can stay out of foul trouble and EJ can play smart and play aggressive the way they always do, I think the sky's the limit for them.
All right, we heard it from the man himself, a 4-year letter winner at Sacred Heart. Big things expected from the Pioneers this season, and they're starting to come along now. Sean, let's turn our attention to Bryant. The Bulldogs off to a strong start. They seem to be loaded with talent this year. Every game, it seems a new player is stepping up, and we're talking about some first-year players that they've brought in. What have you noticed in watching their games where they've been run some teams out of the building pretty much this year so far? What's the difference from 18-19 to 19-20 with the Bulldogs?
Yeah, like you said, they have a very strong start. I think it's all the credit goes to Coach Grasso. He's doing a great job with the guys. All the guys are starting to buy in. They're playing the way he wants to play, very fast. I was talking with a buddy of mine, Coach John McNair, who coached at Sacred Heart. That's why I call him Coach. They play so fast that they're starting to make an identity for themselves. They know exactly how they want to play, and playing that way that's when you get newcomers to step up. You never know who's going to get hot. And like you mentioned, newcomers every other game seems like someone's playing great. Under Coach Grasso's system, that's what's going to really help Bryant really start playing well.
Sean, we talk about some of the newcomers. You have Charles Pride, a 2-time Rookie of the Week. You have Mike Green came in from his first game and looked like a veteran at the point guard spot. Benson Lynn, great shooter, had 19 points the other night against Navy. And then Hall Elijah seems to come out of nowhere, blocks 8 shots in the second half against Navy. Yeah. Some great timing there. The ability to bring in guys off the bench when they haven't even had some of the players they were going to rely on haven't even kind of caught their sail yet this year. And you figure that Sebastian Towns and Juan Cardenas are going to round into form as the year goes on. This is now a deep team that I think has designs on shooting all the way up to the top of the NEC ladder. Yeah,
of course. You mentioned Juan Cardenas and Sebastian Towns, who last year they were keying on him. They were key guys, and like I said, that kind of goes to Coach Grasso's recruiting, the way he coaches, the guys he brings in. They're going, like we talked about, they're going to play very fast, so they're going to have turnover. They're going to have a lot of guys subbing in and out. Hall Elijahs is huge down low. He's gonna affect so many different drives for the guys to go into the basket that they can't drive as easily into him. Michael Green, he takes a lot of pressure off the guys like Ikena Naduba or Adam Grant. He takes a lot of pressure off them. He can find them when they want to be found. Charles Pride won 2 Rookie of the Week. So they have a lot of guys. They're very deep, and I think once they all start playing together, come back from injury, and the older guys start to find their role, they can be someone that could really make some noise.
Yeah, I think having Naduba back this year is that sort of that veteran presence as your floor general, which is great.
Yeah.
But talk to me quickly about Adam Grant. Now you played against this guy your whole career. How good is he?
Yeah, I used to hate playing against Adam Grant. He was. It seemed like every time we played against him, he went off for 30 or hit 7 threes. If you have time, look up Sacred Heart versus Bryant, 2017. It was a triple overtime game. It seemed like he wouldn't even miss. He can get, like I talked about Kareem Rozier earlier, he can get hot, and he can get hot real quick. He sees one ball go in, the next 4 are going in. His scoring ability and his confidence is one of the best in the NEC or one of the best in the NCAA. And I think something like that, if you can't control him, you can't control Bryant. And if he can find his stride throughout the whole season, then Bryant's someone that's going to be tough to deal with, and the team goes as he goes. If he's playing well, Bryant's playing well.
It's been an impressive start for Bryant for sure. Let's head down to Emmitsburg, Mount St. Mary's. We were talking before about this team growing up. Last year they had 4 or 5 freshmen in there at the same time. A lot of them, they're sophomores now. They're still young, but when you look at how Mount has competed against some of these killer teams on their schedule, from Kentucky to Washington to Georgetown, and then even some of the solid mids like a Grand Canyon last night. This team looks ready to make a move when we get into NEC play. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're seeing, what everyone else is seeing. I've been watching a lot of their games. Both my parents are Mount St. Mary's grads, so whenever they're on TV, we're always watching. Last year, Coach Engelstad had an insane amount of freshmen. So he kind of threw them into the fire, and it was tough. It was tough. Sometimes they didn't have a great record, but they competed in many games. This year they're still very young, but they have a year under their belt. They play with joy. They have fun. They're fun to watch. They're happy for each other's success. It seems like every other game there's a highlight reel dunk coming from them, and I think that like you talked about, when they have big games against Georgetown, Washington, even Kentucky and Grand Canyon, where they should have won, that starts to build momentum and starts to build trust in one another, that they can compete with anyone in the country, and then they compete with anyone in the NEC.
One of the things I noticed from this team is how rooted they are defensively this year.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the shots aren't falling. They haven't had the greatest year from outside the arc yet, but they've been in all these games because they're playing solid defense. And that's a hallmark going back for the Mount teams all the way back that I can remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very true. Throughout my 4 years, I used to hate playing there because they were always in your face. The fans were on top of you, and it was very tough to play against them. And it's starting to pay off this year too. Their defense is starting to take a stride. 3 of the last 5 games, teams are shooting under 40%. Nana Opoku and Malik Jefferson are starting to show their length, and they're starting to disrupt shots. And I think that's really going to help their defense. They're starting to run people off the line, force them into tough shots, and I think that's what's really helping them get to the next level of their defensive tier.
One of the great stories in NEC Hoops this season is Damian Chong Qui, the sophomore, former walk-on at the Mount.
Yeah.
Now he's the starter, entrenched as a starter, and he's playing big for he's 5'8", 145 pounds. That's what he's listed at.
Yeah.
But no fear going to the hoop. We saw it last night in Grand Canyon at the end of the game. We saw it in the win over Utah Valley, and now he's starting to shoot, find his range from outside. What was it like playing against him last year?
Yeah, he's tough. He can really get going. Watching the Utah Valley game, it seemed like every possession down the stretch, he was taking the big shot. He was getting to the line. He was hitting big ones. And even last night against Grand Canyon, he was playing great. So he had an awesome story coming from a walk-on to a solidified star in the NEC possibly. And then I think when other guys start to play well, like Vado Morse, Mount can be very dangerous. They can start playing well together. Damian can start finding Vado, and Vado can start finding Damian, and they can play very well together.
Playing down, you said it's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
Is that the toughest place to play, not arena, with all those fans?
In the NEC, yeah, of course. You always hope to get them on Christmas or Thanksgiving break when all the fans weren't there, because there was sometimes those fans can be ruthless, and they'll have some signs, they'll start talking about your family, they'll do anything. So it's tough to play there.
Sean, let's talk about LIU now. They were picked first in the NEC preseason poll. Suffered a blow when Eral Penn was ruled out for the year. So they didn't have the biggest bench to begin with. Now it's a pretty short bench. It's kind of been an up and down year for them. We've seen glimpses of greatness from them. They certainly have some of the best players individually in the NEC. Talk to me about LIU and what you think their ceiling is this year.
They were picked number 1. It was rightfully so. They bring almost everyone back. Obviously, the injury to Eral Penn is a tough one. It's going to hurt their bench, but the guys that are playing are used to playing heavy minutes, like Augusto, Clark, Bats, Flowers. They're all used to playing those type of minutes. I don't see it being an issue, but one injury or one suspension or something out of the blue could really affect the team. But for the meantime, I think the number one seed in the NEC still stands, and I still think they're the team to beat.
Let's talk a little bit about Raekwon Clark and Ty Flowers, both off to tremendous starts.
Yeah.
Raekwon Clark, we've seen him. He led the league in scoring. He's got this motor, and he never stops. Head down, drive to the hoop every time. Now he's starting to shoot threes and make these threes. How dangerous does that make a player like him when you're worried about him driving by you, but also shooting from the outside? Yeah,
it's awful. You don't know how to scout him. You don't know what to do. When we played against him, we didn't know. We switched guys on him every so often to try to disrupt him, but it never changed his mindset. He was always going to score. So we kind of had to accept that fact. Like you said, they're both playing out of their minds. Clark he's always going to score. The rate at which he's scoring, though, is insane. He's shooting over 60% from the field and shooting over 60% from 3. So I think if he can keep this up, LIU is going to be incredibly hard to beat, and he's going to be incredibly hard to guard.
Let's talk a little bit about Flowers, one of those 6'9" stretch 4 types that can play inside out, disrupt the game in so many ways. Game planning against someone like that, what's that like?
It's not fun. I usually had to guard him, and it was always a matchup nightmare for me because he's just so much taller and longer. Would get rebounds over me, shoot over me, and it was tough. So I can only imagine what everyone else is going through right now. He's leading the team in rebounding. He's second in the team in scoring, second in assists, first in blocks. He's doing it all. He literally He does everything for the team. And I think when his shot starts to fall, he can really start being an all-league player in this conference.
One thing you don't see all that often in the NEC is a backcourt that's pretty much been together as the starting backcourt for their entire career with Jason Augusto and Julian Bats. That sort of chemistry, does this give them somewhat of an edge over all these other teams that they know each other so well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're starting backcourt that been together for the past 4 years, aren't even your 2 best players, it can really build team chemistry. Julian and Jason are both very good leaders. They know their role. They know what they bring to the table, and they can rely on in big spots. Julian has hit multiple big shots over his career. Jason hit multiple against us last year in the NEC tournament. Julian coming from a great school, St. Thomas More, that I went to too. So you build that relationship over time, and you build that leadership over time. And when those 2 guys aren't even the 2 best players, I think that their starting 5 could be one of the most deadly in the league.
They never get tired, those 2 guys.
No, never. They can play the whole game, and you won't even know.
You ever have to guard Jason?
Yeah, it's nightmare.
He's quick.
Yeah, he's quick, and he's so small. You don't even know what he's doing next. He's tough.
Sean, let's take a tour through the rest of the NEC now. Let's just go alphabetically. Let's start with Central Connecticut, a really young team. Yeah. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, they're off to a bit of a slow start, obviously, struggling 0-8 at the moment, but they have a really big game coming up. They're playing Maine, and I think it's very important for them to get this win, get it under their belt, because the next couple of games they got Boston College, Dartmouth, and Penn State, 3 very tough opponents. And I think going into conference play, you want to get at least one, and I think it's huge for them to get this win.
So definitely some talent there. Jameer Coleman has come on as of late. Greg Outlaw is a really good rookie. Ian Christian has not even played yet this year. But they had an encouraging result, a 2-point loss against UMass Lowell.
Yeah.
Could they be turning the corner?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you always want to think optimistic. And they have some pieces there that when they all start to find their stride, they definitely could turn the corner. Like you mentioned, that they have some very good players and 2 very good freshmen that are starting to play good in Greg Outlaw and Jameer Reed. And I think if they start to find their stride in college basketball and Jameer Coleman starts playing well and he steps up and leads the team, like I know he can, then they can really start turning the corner and start making some noise.
FDU comes off a big win this week, beat Quinnipiac on Tuesday. I love this team. I love their starting lineup. Now they're healthy, finally. You have Jalil Jenkins back in the lineup. Xavier Malone-Key back in the lineup. You pair them with your Caleb Bishops and your Elijah Williams. You know, Brandon Rush has come on already. There is talent there. They are well coached. Could they get back to the top?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The Coach Horrenda, a good friend of mine, you can never count them out. They won 2 of the past 4. And for some reason, they still don't get enough credit. I seem like every other year, even what they've done. They finally have a full roster, like you said. They beat Quinnipiac. They're behind Jalil Jenkins, who can be an all-NEC type guy. They have Elijah Williams, who's starting to play great. Caleb Bishop is unbelievable. Xavier Malone-Key had 29 against Quinnipiac. So they have a ton of players, and I think when they all start getting healthier and they start playing together, they can really start playing well, and they could definitely see themselves at the top of the NEC again.
Always an entertaining team to watch, FDU. Yeah. Jalil Jenkins, one of my favorites, just because of his style. I'm a point guard guy, and I love the way he plays because he kind of has that old school game where he's throwing up floaters and he uses the glass. Like, how tough is it to stay in front of him, and how tough is it to play against someone who really can command the court? Doesn't seem to ever make mistakes out there.
Yeah, he is a threat every time he touches the ball. He's so fast with it too, and like you mentioned, he has that little floater to his game, and you don't know when he's about to shoot it. So it's like you can't really guard it, and he's so good at it that it makes it difficult for a shot blocker like Jarrell Spellman from Sacred Heart to block a shot like that. So I think he can really affect the game in that way. And then when you pair him with someone like Caleb Bishop, who's a matchup nightmare because he can step out, he's shooting over 40% from 3, and he's finishing well at the basket. They can be a very good duo, and they're starting to really find their stride.
And not to make a pun here, but the X factor being Xavier Malone-Key coming back. He could be as athletic as anyone in this league as far as in transition, but also step back and he'll drain a 3 right in your face. Yeah,
and he's had some big dunks. He can really get up. He can really quick. Against Quinnipiac, like I mentioned, he had 29 and he only took 12 shots. So he can really get it going.
Robert Morris moves into the new UPMC Event Center. They play a really tough non-conference schedule every year. There has been some success. Some of the newcomers have fit right in, and you could see the all-conference potential in them. You throw them in with Josh and John Williams, Charles Bain. These are really good players. This team seems to have a lot of upside potential.
Yeah, Coach Toole does a great job every year. You always know he's going to get from his teams. They're always going to play hard, and they're going to play the right way. You can never count them out. They're always going to compete in every single game they're in. Like you mentioned, John and Josh Williams are really starting to play well together. They have a very good assist-to-turnover ratio, both of them. They're both shooting over 35% from 3. So I think if you start to get them going, and then Robert Morris will start to get going.
Another player I'll throw in there, A.J. Brahma from Robert Morris, one of those newcomers we talked about earlier, averaging over 8 rebounds a game, can play inside, outside. I love his length. I think he's the perfect type of Robert Morris player that you see from year to year. We'll be hearing his name a lot as we head into conference play in January. One of the things I like about Robert Morris is they always seem to improve as the year goes on. And then once the playoffs hit, they are always dangerous because they have a coach who knows how to win big games, and they have just tough, gritty players that get it done in big spots.
Every single year. Robert Morris will be super competitive in the NEC as long as Coach Toole is there. I can see them actually surprising many teams this year, and I can see them finishing toward the top of the NEC.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. One of the teams that's competitive year in and year out is St. Francis Brooklyn. Glenn Brake always does a great job with this team. Now, he lost Glenn Sanabria, who was an all-star. He lost Jalen Jordan, who was an all-star. But there always seems to be the next man up mentality there. And Chauncey Hawkins is one of those players who already last year started to emerge as a scorer. Now this year, it looks like it's his team.
Guys like you mentioned, Chauncey Hawkins, and someone I think about is Unique McLean, are really going to need to step up for them to be successful. Chauncey Hawkins last year was able to hit some big shots, especially against us. He played well against us, and I think if he can continue to do that throughout the season, then they can definitely make some noise. They play hard, they play tough and gritty basketball. They're Brooklyn tough, so they're always gonna play hard. You know what you get from them too, and I think that guys like Chauncey and Unique, if they can start playing well, then St. Francis Brooklyn will start playing well.
Time to talk about the Red Flash coming off a huge win at St. Joe's, 79-63. In that game, you saw their two top players, Keith Braxton, the reigning player of the year, and Isaiah Blackman go off in that game. This team is another one with just a tremendous amount of potential about what they can do. They lost Jamal King. They brought in Tyler Stewart. There's a lot of talent on this team. What do you see from them over the first month of the season?
Well, they're returning the coach and the player of the year. Coach Krimmel is an unbelievable coach, and he's a great recruiter. He just picked up his 100th win against St. Joe's, so congrats to him. With the combination of Keith Braxton and Isaiah Blackman, they're going to be able to compete in every single game they play in. Braxton is so efficient, he's so effective in every single game he plays in. And Blackman is starting to get back to his old self. And I think if they start to rely on those two a little bit, they can be real good.
Let me pick your brain a little bit about Keith Braxton,
as
someone who's played against him. I wouldn't say he's the best shooter. I wouldn't say he's the best leaper, the best ball handler, but he's the best player.
Yeah.
What makes Keith Braxton such a tough guard, and then on the other end of the floor, so tough defensively to go up against?
I think he just knows the game. I don't think he doesn't try to do too much. He's not trying to dunk on anyone. He's not trying to hit step back threes or cross someone up. He's just really good at what he does. He plays basketball the right way, and he's one of those guys you look up at the, like I talked about with EJ, you look up at the end of the game and he has 18 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists. And you're like, this guy changed the game and you didn't even know it. And so I think he just plays the right way, and I think he's been that way this past 4 years, and he's definitely going to make another case for Player of the Year.
Lots of newcomers in Staten Island this year for Wagner, but as always, the grittiness and the toughness and the defense will come to the forefront. We've seen some players like Elijah Ford, who's coming on strong now, and Will Martinez. So some of the newcomers can really go. You add them in with Nigel Jackson, and once we get to NEC games, it's just going to be the same Wagner team that we're used to seeing.
As always, there's another team that you know exactly what you're going to get. They're in your face. They're never backing down. They play hard, and that's exactly what you're going to get, like you mentioned. They have a lot of new guys. It's basically a brand new roster, it seems like, guys transferring in, JUCO guys, some freshmen.
One of the things I can ask you as a player, that's another one of those gyms that when you go in there, it's so small and you don't need a lot of people in there, and they do a great job filling it for that place to be loud. How tough is it going to Wagner knowing that in-your-face defense is coming?
Yeah, you always know it's coming, but it still hits you by surprise. 3 of the past, I think, 4 years that we were played there, we were caught in a snowstorm, so they didn't have many fans there. So it was a little bit of a relief going against like 6 fans. But it still gets loud. Their bench gets very into it, and they always are in your face. Most of the time they're picking up full court. They're letting you know when you made a mistake, and I think nothing's going to change that for them.
Sean, I know it's early, but I got to put you on the spot now. It's December. Let's fast forward to March. When it comes down to that NEC final on ESPN, what 2 teams will be still standing?
Well, I personally can never go against my alma mater and my boys at Sacred Heart. I personally trust in Coach Latina. I know the players trust in Coach Latina, and I know all of Fairfield does. I think they have good balance at every position. I think they got shooters in Kinnan LaRose and Aaron Clark. I think they have playmakers like Kareem Ozier and EJ Anasicki, and defensive-minded guys like Jarrell Spellman. Obviously, we talked about Cam. That can really change the game. And someone like Tyler Thomas coming off the bench and Zach Pfaffenberger bringing good energy. I think they're going to be a very tough team to beat.
Who are they going to play in the final, though?
They got Wagner. And I know that not many people have had him, but I think Coach Mason was mad how the year ended for them last year. I think he was not letting it happen again. And I think he's really going to have his team play super hard. And when you have a combination of guys that play hard and a lot of talent, like Curtis Cobb, like Chase Freeman, the sky's the limit for them, and they can really make some noise.
So in a shocking development, Sacred Heart alum Sean Hohen picks the Pioneers to win it all. But just as surprising is maybe that you picked Wagner to be the other team in the dance with them. I don't think a lot of people would say that, but we'll hold you to this one in March. We're looking forward to the rest of the non-conference season and then league play in January and February, and of course the postseason. If Sean is still around, we will try to get you back in to do some more of these as the year goes on. I know you bumped Ryan Peters today, but we'll get him back in as well. We're excited for another year of NEC Hoops and NEC on the Run. I'm Ron Ratner. This is Sean Hohen. Thanks for coming in, Sean.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
All right, we will see you next time on the NEC on the Run Hoops podcast.